With the new Six Flags merger officially in the books and the earliest waves already being made, I felt it was time for me to revisit a topic that I've been trying to work into a video for well over a year now. Though we do not know a lot regarding the future of this new mega chain, a lot of people have already begun writing off certain parks as doomed and have already begun saying that the chain will have to close certain parks in order to keep the lights on at the other parks. I want to laser focus on one park that has already received the enthusiast kiss of death and investigate why everything the park is doing points to the exact opposite. In fact, I believe this park is primed to move up from a forgotten park to a new fan favorite. Welcome to Season 2 of Station Wait. I can only dangle the carrot for so long before I reveal what park I'm about to be touting to be on the up and up before even I get bored, so let's rip the band-aid off early on. The only thing I ask is that you stick around to hear my justification with an open mind. The park in question is none other than Six Flags Darien Lake. I understand how absurd this sounds, trust me, I really do. That's why I collected 10 reasons, plus an honorable mention, that you should keep an eye on this little park in Corfu, New York over the next 10 years, as well as 5 things this park needs to change immediately to ensure that demand will continue to rise. Let's start with an honorable mention, parking infrastructure. While there's still a long way to go, Darien Lake has invested a fair amount of money into its parking situation over the last year and a half. This money went to 2 primary upgrades, those being speedy parking and electric car chargers. With the rollout of speedy parking chain-wide, I really wasn't sure if Darien Lake would get this service, as we do not have the flash, skip-the-line service that most of the other parks have. I was pleasantly surprised to see that not only is speedy parking available this season, but it was included with my Diamond Pass. This means I can just roll up to the park and have it scan my license plate that's already attached to my season pass, and then I'm immediately on my way into the lot. The EV chargers are another upgrade that I was very happy to see. All feelings on EVs aside, this investment heavily implies that park management does not see this park going anywhere anytime soon. In my opinion, these chargers are actually kind of pretty and are a great sign for the park's future. Okay, the first thing that Darien Lake is doing that shows me they're taking their future very seriously and project growth going forward is their handling of Predator, Boomerang, and Mind Eraser. 2 of these rides specifically, those being Predator and Mind Eraser, have been famous in the enthusiast community as well as the Buffalo area for being, let's call it, less than smooth. Beginning in 2022, the park has had an ongoing relationship with GCI to add more Titan Track every year. By my math, it's currently at a total of approximately 23% metal as of the writing of this video, if we include the station, lift hill, and brake run into those calculations. I've been told by multiple people at Darien Lake that the goal is to have the entire ride be metal within a few years as of last year. Predator turns 35 next year, so my personal theory is that it'll be a full hybrid coaster by the end of next year. I have no rumors to back that up, so take it with a grain of salt, of course. Back to Mind Eraser, if you've not heard yet, it closed for this entire season to prepare for a track reprofile, paint job, and 2 brand new trains. If done right, this could turn what was arguably the worst SLC into one of the best SLCs, similar to what Great Nor'easter did. This could be massive for rounding out the awkward lineup that Darien Lake currently has. Improving Predator and Mind Eraser takes probably the 2 worst coasters in the park and levels the playing field a bit, opening up the door for one new ride to provide an amazing 1-2 punch with Ride of Steel and have the rest of the park be a great supporting lineup. This extends into their partial recheck of Boomerang this offseason as well. In my opinion, Boomerang was already one of the smoother Boomerang models, but a total recheck of the vertical loop has gone a long way in making the ride less shaky. It's clear to me based on their care for existing rides that park management intends on making their park better in every way they reasonably can. Speaking of taking care of what they have, the second reason to keep an eye on Darien Lake is the rumors of a new themed area to accompany the new Mind Eraser refurb. This rumor has been circling since early this season, and honestly it makes a lot of sense if you look at what the area has become over the last few years. From Mind Eraser Island, which isn't actually an island, it's just what it's called, all the way over to the location of the now defunct Grizzly Run Rapids ride, this area of the park has been progressively worse and more barren year over year since COVID. However, this year there was a pause on that regression. One could even argue it's actually been an improvement, as some of the shops in the saloon that were rarely open in the past have been open much more this year. Combine this with the rumors that I mentioned earlier, and I think this area of the park is primed for a facelift in the very near future. The mention of that area improving this season really plays well into the third point I want to make. That being the fact that there's been a noticeable amount of park beautification in the last 2 seasons, especially this season. All around the park there's been new signs, landscaping, flags, banners, and much more. The Ride of Steel gift shop even got a facelift this year. Beautification is typically on the cheaper side of the spectrum when it comes to upgrades a park can do, but it's an investment nonetheless. Though the whole park has seen some small upgrades here and there, the major area that's seen an overhaul in its appearance is the plaza around the laser light show and the general store. This area has become genuinely the most beautiful area of the park, and while it is entirely out of the way, I do my best to head that way every time I'm in the park to soak up the well put together aesthetic. Not only is it gorgeous during the day, but the beauty extends into nighttime with lights and holographic fans. I'm going to get into that a little bit later, so let's put a pin in it for now and take a look at the next thing Darien Lake is doing to improve the park experience. Something else that I've been told from inside the park is that another goal for next year is to have 2 trains on every coaster that can reasonably run 2 trains. For those of you who have not been to the park, for every year since COVID, and possibly before but I can't verify that, Darien Lake has run 1 train on every coaster. As of this year, Tantrum is running 2 trains. We also know that Mind Eraser is going to run 2 trains after the retracking. That leaves Viper, Predator, Motocoaster, and Ride of Steel to get 2 trains. I've been told that Motocoaster has a train that they just don't use, and from a less reliable source, I've been told the same thing about Viper. That leaves Ride of Steel and Predator. Ride of Steel is relatively easy, they would just have to order a new train from Intimate. Predator would have a lot of options as well. Personally, if I was in charge of deciding what trains to be purchased for Predator, I would pick 2 new GCI trains, either Millennium or Infinity Flyers, but if the park doesn't want to invest in 2 full trains, they could also get 1 more PTC train to go with the one they already have. Reason number 5 that Darien Lake is primed to have a breakout year soon is park attendance. I do not have solid post-COVID numbers, but it's not a secret that Darien Lake has been struggling very hard to draw in guests for the last few years. This year, due in no small part to a lot of the things I'm discussing in this video, park attendance has gone up significantly. Despite having 1 train ops on every coaster, I have not waited more than 10 minutes for anything in the last 2 seasons. For reference, that's about 3 or 4 trains on most coasters depending how efficient the dispatches are. This year, however, I've seen waits on Ride of Steel and Predator get north of 45 into the 1 hour range, despite the fact that ops and dispatches seem a lot better. I happen to know someone who works in the admin offices at the park and was told that on one single Friday in early June before school was out, the park profited over $250,000. In terms of pre-COVID attendance, Darien Lake was drawing 3% of the overall Legacy Six Flags attendance, which doesn't sound like a lot, but once put into perspective, knowing that Fiesta Texas, a park which most people would consider healthy, if not a chain favorite, was drawing 4% of the chain's attendance. A large part of this discrepancy in attendance pre and post-COVID can be attributed to one thing: Canadians. Before COVID, I met many Canadians in the park that said they came across the border to go to Darien Lake as it's where they grew up, or it was less crowded than Canada's Wonderland, or they just loved the park and the experience that the campground provided. One look at the parking lot would confirm that a large amount of guests at the park on any pre-COVID day were from our neighbors to the north. For obvious reasons, COVID drastically cut back on how many Canadians would come and visit this park, and the addition of Yukon Striker right before COVID helped draw the border crossing guests back to their homeland for their amusement needs. The next point I want to discuss plays into this dip in international attendance perfectly. Reason 6 to keep an eye on Darien Lake is the new confirmed Six Flags All Park Passport. Announced rather quietly via a season pass update and a blog post, parkgoers will be able to access all parks in the new Six Flags chain with 1 pass beginning on January 6th, 2025. This has massive implications for a park like Darien Lake. With this full chain access, the Canadian guests who previously visited the park but has since switched over to Canada's Wonderland no longer need to purchase a separate pass or ticket to border hop to their closest Six Flags park. They just need to buy the All Park add-on. Add to this the fact that many people who may have not stopped to visit Darien Lake on their coaster road trips due to only having a Cedar Fair pass will likely now stop, and you have a significant influx of new guests for this park. But where will these new guests stay? Corfu is kind of in the middle of nowhere after all. For those of you who don't know where I'm going with this, let me introduce you to the 7th reason to keep an eye on Darien Lake in the future: the Campground Hotel. Darien Lake has been a camping destination for nearly as long as the park has existed. This camping experience has expanded over the years to become a massive campground that essentially is its own small town at this point. If camping isn't your vibe though, don't worry about it. In 1998, the park built an on-property hotel to house guests as well. This hotel, combined with the aforementioned campground, means that Darien Lake is in the perfect position for where Six Flags has been moving lately, with projects such as the glamping experience at Great Adventure. The area that I mentioned earlier that is pretty at night is technically part of the campground and surrounds the main section of the campground with the general store, camp office, and arcade, as well as food options and a bar. They have really juiced up this area recently with nightlife as well as early morning activities for the family. In my opinion, this is a huge win for guests who also want to stay on site during their visit. The campground butts right up against the Laser Light Show Plaza, the show itself being my 8th point regarding the improvement in this park. Another casualty of COVID, we lost the Laser Light Spectacular between 2020 and 2022, but at the start of the 2023 season, it was quietly announced that the fan favorite Laser Light Show would be returning. This show is a huge audio-visual spectacular every night that a lot of people end up staying for. Think of it as a park's drone show or fireworks. I recommend arriving early if you want to stay for this, as seating is all lawn seating and will fill up very quickly, but that honestly shows off the genius of this show. It keeps people in the park through the end of the day, which in turn causes people to spend more money on food, games, and merchandise. Though this is in no way a uniquely Darien Lake thing to do, the fact that they were willing to bring it back when it was presumed dead after 3 seasons without a show really goes to show that the higher-ups at this park are willing to spend money to get the results they want. Speaking of spending money, let's talk about the 9th positive thing that this park has for its future. Ride and park maintenance. It's been absolutely off the charts this year. On every visit I've had, downtime has been essentially non-existent on rides with the exception of Blast Off, the S&S shot tower that's been problematic for most of its life. Moto Coaster opened on time this year to be ready for opening day. That alone is something I haven't seen in years. The Viper train is no longer Frankenstein from the orange and blue trains and is all one color again, which is a small detail but is appreciated for sure. And Tantrum got a whole new photo system with new displays so you can actually see your picture when you get off the ride. Ride of Steel's lockers actually work this year, and while I wish they were free, I'll take functioning lockers over non-functioning ones on a ride with a loose article policy any day. Tantrum is a ride model which usually gets a reputation for becoming rough quickly, and at 6 years old, it's still butter smooth. I really like what the teams over at the park are doing, keeping everything running smoothly for guests. The real cherry on top here is that Big Kahuna, a fan favorite slide in the water park, finally opened this year after sitting dormant and being assumed defunct since 2021. I admittedly don't have a great segue into this last point I want to make, so I'm just going to say it. Reason 10 is that Darien Lake has decent merch with a wide variety. For a small park that, for lack of better terms, has been ignored by Six Flags corporate for years now, I was actually shocked at both the design quality and prices of merch at this park. This point is obviously subjective in the design aspect, but I personally find a lot of park merch to be tacky, gaudy, or downright ugly. While Darien Lake has some of that, of course, most of the merch is tasteful and can be bought at a reasonable price. Add on the fact that pass holders constantly get rotating discounts on all sort of merchandise, and you have a good recipe for sales. This is why keeping people in the park through the end of the day is so impactful. People actually want to buy the merch at Darien Lake. I mentioned at the top of the video that I had 5 things that the park needs to do as soon as possible to help water the seeds that I just discussed, so let's take a look at those now. First of all, the layout needs to be fixed. While most parks are stuck with the layout they have, Darien Lake is in a unique position to be able to fix this very easily, as it was a mistake they made in the wake of COVID. If you couldn't already tell, COVID kinda shot this park in the foot. Before COVID, the beautiful area in the campground was actually part of the park. In fact, Moto Coaster's entrance was back there. This made the park a complete circle around Fun Lake, which made traffic flow smooth and not difficult in the slightest. Guests could walk out near Boomerang and re-enter near what was Twister at the time, but is now their Star Flyer. Now you can still exit at both of these locations, but you cannot re-enter. The only way to re-enter the park in the back is get a hand stamp when you exit at either of those locations, and then walk all the way over to the back near Anchor Bar to get in. When I say a hand stamp is the only way, they literally don't even accept season passes here. It's truly bizarre. I fully understand that this change was made because pre-COVID, admission to the park was included with staying on property, so you could allow people to just free roam to and from the campground, but the cost of disrupting park flow is simply too high in this case. There has to be a middle ground to restore the old flow while still charging for park admission. I also want to throw in there how much wasted or empty space there is at this park while talking about the layout. There is so many plots that are either empty or not being utilized anymore that you could literally double the amount of coasters this park has without removing a single existing coaster. It's crazy. The second improvement that needs to happen to spur a fan base for this park is a social media overhaul. The media in general surrounding this park is lackluster at best and non-existent at worst. I do not consider myself a notable Twitter account by any means, but every time I tweet about Darien Lake, it gets more impression than any time the park tweets about anything themselves, despite the fact that they have more than 10 times the followers I do. I truly believe that if a new team came in and ran the social media in a modern way, the entire enthusiast community's opinion on this park could change, similar to how Ryan coming into Dorney really put that park on the enthusiast map. Also, shout out to Jen and Talon for the assist on that one. This extends past social media and into traditional media as well. I live in Buffalo, the second biggest city in New York and the largest demographic for Darien Lake, and I see almost zero advertisement for this park whatsoever. Compare this to other parks that rent billboards, banners, TV ads, and more to get attention of locals. Another small bone to pick is the lack of work with content creators. I don't even want to pretend to think that I am by any means entitled to work with any park. However, from what I can tell, Darien Lake is not willing to work with any of us, a major fumble on their part in the modern media landscape. Number 3 is a big one that I hope the merger will naturally fix on its own, but the food and drink options at this park leave a lot to be desired. Simply put, ditch the Pepsi products for the chain standard Coke machines and get 1 or 2 high quality, high capacitive dining options. All of the food now is of medium or worse quality, and the overwhelming majority of it is overpriced cliche theme park garb. Chicken tenders, fries, nachos, and pizza make up the overwhelming majority of this park, and the average meal is near $20. The 2 exceptions to this rule are Anchor Bar and Beaver Brothers, but Anchor Bar is really low capacity and Beaver Brothers is an overpriced buffet. Something akin to Farmhouse at Cedar Point or Coney Barbecue and Brew House at Kings Island would do numbers at Darien Lake, because as isolated as this park is, there isn't many restaurants around, which means people either need to eat in the park or pack food for the day and eat in their cars. I also want the paper cup drink plan, as carrying around the souvenir cup is an inconvenience, and I had one stolen last year. On the flip side of one of my honorable mentions, my next major need for this park is an overhaul of the parking situation. Firstly, the lot needs to be repaved, as it's in rough shape to say the least. That isn't even the main concern here really. The preferred parking is barely separated from the main parking, and it's never manned, so people can just park there whenever they want without repercussions. Normally this wouldn't be the end of the world, if not for one thing: concerts. Darien Lake has a massive concert venue where the largest acts that come to the Buffalo area will often perform during the summer. Trying to park for the theme park on a day when a concert is going on is a nightmare and a half, to say the least. The lot will be at capacity long before the show even starts, and people will just be walking all over. I tried to get around this issue once by using my preferred parking, however, the people attending the concert had just parked there anyway due to the lack of monitoring over the space. Overall, this lot just needs a rework if they want to host large crowds ever again. The only good thing about this lot is that the handicap parking is perfectly located and is done better than any other park I've been to. I don't think the last thing that Darien Lake needs is really a secret, but I'll say it anyway. This park desperately needs a major attraction if it wants to pick itself up and improve itself. Ideally, this would be a new show-stopping coaster to give a 1-2 punch with Ride of Steel, but honestly, anything to get people in the gates would work. If this park doesn't add anything, all the improvements they've already been doing will be in vain, I fear. If anyone at Darien Lake is watching this, please invest in a new coaster. Maybe the first B&M in New York or a world-class RMC. Put yourself on the map, the ball is in your court on this one, I'm begging you. Darien Lake really is a great little park with a lot of heart and more potential than most people give it credit for. The fact that I can easily point out more things it has done right than wrong in the last 2 years really emphasizes the upward trajectory that this park is on and can continue to be on given the proper attention post-merger. If you made it this far into the video, thank you so much for sticking around, and any interactions you can do in the comments or by hitting the like and subscribe buttons would help me out a whole lot. You might know that I took a whole year off YouTube, but I'm back now and I'm going to be fighting the algorithm hard to gain momentum again. I'm Josh from Station Wait. Have a great day.